Hello, you're on Initiative Africa. My name is Asha Sampet. Welcome to this new edition of your weekly magazine featuring Africa on the move through smart innovations and initiatives that work. Let's get on with the show with our top stories today. The security crisis in the Sahel holds no secrets for our guest of the day, Seidik ABBA. Journalist and writer, he regularly deciphers African news on France 24, BBC and Deutsche Welle. Our expert on terrorist movements is here to help us better understand Boko Haram, which is precisely the title of his latest book. The least we can say is that he doesn't mince his words.
Many today consider it's no longer a movement with an ideology, but rather a vicious mafia movement which kidnaps civilians to make money.
Saving the endangered sea turtles on the beaches of the Congo, this is the mission of the NGO Renatura. It has come to an understanding with the fishermen to save these deeds of our oceans.
As the nets are actually large meshes, the turtles are easily captured. Then, of course, we release them and call Renatura for that, and they make sure the turtles are released.
African, Caribbean and Latin American influences for this dance from Angola, it's the Kizomba, a real international success.
20 Fingers
is a new style. It's a fusion of several influences. There's zouk, R&B, a touch of terrachinha and a pinch of Afro.
The Congolese coasts are particularly hospitable for sea turtles. They are home to 4 of the 7 species listed in the world. But these protected reptiles, which have inhabited our oceans for more than 150 million years, are threatened with extinction, in particular because of poaching or fishing. Fortunately, the local NGO Renatura has been working since 2005 to save them with an original solution. Our journalist Jean-David Miamle and his cameraman Brice Kinou attended the rescue of sea turtles trapped in the nets of fishermen in the Longo Bay near Pointe-Noire. Take a look.
We are on the beach of Loango near Pointe-Noire, and this is a sea turtle known as the green turtle. It was accidentally caught in the fishermen nets. Before being released at sea, employees of the Renatura NGO, who have the mission of the protection of marine turtles in Congo, take the measurements of this marine species. Exhausted, the sea turtle struggles to move. The 50 meters that separate the sea turtle from the sea seem endless for the poor animal. Fortunately, Jean-Félix Chibinda from Renatura is there to give the animal a nudge to find the sea at last, an operation that has become quite common for this employee of Renatura NGO.
Last week I had at least 12 in my nets, of which 3 were dead. This week I only had 2, including a dead one again. During the month we can get 50, more or less. Sometimes less than 10, depending on the catch of the fishermen.
For the fishermen, the capture of sea turtles is quite simply accidental.
We want to catch fish, and during the sardinette, we fish right here on the shore. But here on the shore, it's where the turtles come out of the water to eat the grasses and the fish, all that, but mostly grass. When they arrive, there are nets and they get caught. As the nets are actually large meshes, the turtles are easily captured. Then, of course, we release them and call Renatura for that, and they make sure the turtles are released.
Renatura is an NGO under Congolese law created in 2005. It has signed partnerships with the inhabitants of Loango Beach. They compensate for any damage caused by the capture of sea turtles, including tearing of nets, compensations that actually delight the fishermen.
When we accidentally catch sea turtles, our nets are damaged, and then we call Renatura, who compensate us by replacing the nets because of the damage caused by the turtles. So it's all good. In fact, when we started releasing turtles all over the Congolese coast, we signed an agreement with the fishermen. The agreement stipulates we should provide the material to mend the nets that have been ripped by the sea turtles. So when a fisherman lets us know when he catches a turtle, our agent, who is permanently in the area, looks at the damage to the nets. We then estimate the extent of the damage caused, and our agent then calculates the number of fishing spools to give to the fisherman. The fisherman can then come to us to receive the spools that allow him to repair the damage caused by the turtles.
Interestingly, the Congolese coasts are very hospitable to sea turtles due to the abundance of nutrients such as algae, mollusks, shrimps, and fish, among others, as well as their rocky habitat. A real nursery for marine turtles, which already houses 4 out of the 7 species of marine turtles listed in the world.
In fact, the Congo is home to 4 of the 7 species of marine turtles that exist worldwide. And all year round in our waters there's a constant stream of the various species. Sea turtles are migratory, which means they travel long distances between their breeding grounds and their feeding waters. The Bay of Loango, where we are right now, is where green turtles spend most of their time in their juvenile stage, mainly to feed. There are also leatherback turtles, and this is the world's #1 site right now that's home to so many leatherbacks. It used to be in French Guiana, but today the trend's reversed. It's not a fairy tale, you know. Congo is home to many sea turtles that come here either to feed or to breed, and that is particularly related to the wealth of biodiversity, the marine biodiversity that can be found here and which is part of their food chain. Another reason is the nature of the beaches around the Congolese coast, which easily allow turtles to climb and then nest and reproduce here.
Yet, a threat looms on the horizon. The number of captures of turtles that come to the Congolese coast continues to decrease. From thousands, 5 years ago it has averaged 300 in recent years. Perhaps the industrial activities with oil exploitation and the extension of the port of Pointe-Noire have something to do with it.
It's time to meet our guest Seidik ABBA, who after his journey at the heart of Boko Haram, published in 2020 by Harmattan Editions, signs his second book, Better Understand Boko Haram, with the ambition of informing people about the little-known undersides of this terrorist organization born in Difa in the southeast of Niger, the author's native region. Seidik ABBA answered to the questions of François Baudry and details the history of this movement in this first part of his interview.
Seidik ABBA, hello. You're both a journalist and a writer, and today you're one of the best specialists to talk about the Boko Haram terrorist movement. It should be added that you're from Difa in Niger, which is one of the historic places where Boko Haram was born, and you wrote your first book 2 years ago, Voyage au cœur de Boko Haram, a journey at the heart of Boko Haram. This movement is once again in the spotlight as one of its leaders died in combat in a fratricidal war against another faction. What is the situation today?
Oui, c'est tout à fait exact, et vous faites bien de rappeler que Aboubakar Shekau...
That's quite right, and you do well to remind us that Aboubakar Shekau, who led one of the 2 factions of Boko Haram, has just died. He leaves a jihadist movement that's more divided than ever. Back in March 2016, when it swore allegiance to the Islamic State and the Levant in Iraq and Syria, Boko Haram became the Islamic State in West Africa Province, more commonly known by its acronym ISWAP. Today, though, the 2 groups are bitter rivals in a fratricidal fight that regularly leaves dozens and dozens of deaths in the ranks of both 2 wings of Boko Haram. And to everyone's surprise, Aboubakar Shekau's death offers some sort of opportunity for the movement to reunite. We know that talks have begun between the 2 wings to reach a peaceful solution. Since while Aboubakar Shekau was alive, he was a sort of obstacle to reunification because of the rivalry for the leadership of the 2 groups of fighters.
So you think these 2 groups are going to merge again?
En tout cas, il y a même eu...
In any case, we're waiting for validation. There's even been a joint declaration. A video's been circulating amongst those that know the movement well, which indicates the two wings are now ready to overcome their differences and reunite as they consider their mutual enemies today are the governments of the country in which they're fighting, namely Nigeria, Niger, Cameroon and Chad. Plus, there wouldn't seem to be any reason to continue their rivalry, and instead get the two factions back together in the common struggle against those states, and those they describe as unbelievers.
It is a group today which is considered as one of the deadliest in the world, with 40,000 dead. It's huge. Is it still the violent movement that we've known?
La question est très pertinente parce que au moment de la scission,
it's a good question, because at the time of the split, Abu Bakr Shekau's faction decided to no longer distinguish between military targets and the civilian population. As a result, it began killing indiscriminately, targeting both civilians and military. As for the other faction that didn't support Shekau, the rival wing felt that targets were not part of the establishment or military should not be attacked, so sparing civilians. With the factions reuniting after the death of Shekau, there's a chance there will be fewer deaths and that civilians will be spared, because in the jihadist movement, a good part of the movement considers that civilians, women and children, and the most vulnerable, should not be attacked. With Shekau no longer on the scene, these groups could be spared, and we might have fewer deaths. But as you said, Boko Haram has already killed 40,000 people. It's the deadliest movement in the world. Even if it stopped today, its past record. It is the most lethal movement in the world. Even if it stopped today, its past record is deadly.
When we read what you wrote about how they are funded, theft of cattle, taxes on goods on trade, kidnappings for ransom, we're close to mafia activity, aren't we?
Absolument. Boko Haram, à sa naissance.
Absolutely. When Boko Haram was created in 2002 at Kama, which is on the border between Niger and Nigeria, under the leadership of its founder, Mohammed Yusuf, theirs was a religious ideology that relied on theological arguments. But after turning to violence in 2009, the killings began, and eventually this also led to other crimes. We have evidence that between January and November 2020, almost €1 million were paid by the families of those who had been kidnapped. Small amounts of cash were augmented by the forced sale of family jewels to afford the ransom payments. Boko Haram has effectively turned into a criminal gang, and many today consider it's no longer a movement with an ideology, but rather a vicious mafia movement which kidnaps civilians to make money.
Welcome back to the second part of Initiative Africa. I'm now taking you in the footsteps of Kizomba, a dance that began to spread throughout the world in the years 2000. Its origins can be found in the Selemba, the national dance of Angola, but also in the zouk of West Indian origin and even tango. Paris even hosts a 5-day Kizomba Congress every year. Lauren Rimondi visited Maputo in Zimbabwe to meet one of the ambassadors of this energetic and languid dance, 20 Fingers.
In this tiny recording studio in the heart of Maputo, the capital of Mozambique, is a hit factory for 20 Fingers. Songs like Je t'aime, Let Put Down, and the latest hit, Asuma. 20 Fingers is the spearhead of Kizomba, a musical genre bringing down the house in Portuguese-speaking Africa. This highly sensual music, with its roots in Angola, stems from a traditional style known as semba, a style that developed in the 1980s under the influence of Caribbean zouk music and went on to widespread recognition through the Victoria Carnival in Luanda, the Angolan capital. 20 Fingers and Kizomba go together hand in hand.
20 Fingers, mais ou menos porque.
Why 20 Fingers? I just like the name because I make music with my fingers and with my feet. They carry me when I'm busy promoting my work.
A qualquer lugar
I wanted to pay tribute to my fingers. So there you have it, 20 fingers.
Gracio has a gift for music. At the age of 7, Gracio Deniase Alfinar learned to sing in church. Some years later, as a producer and musician, he crossed paths with successful musician DJ Faya. Their meeting produced Agara, the hit that set off his career. With his ever-youthful air, 20 Fingers, and his romantic musical videos, unleashes the passions of the Mozambican youth. The key to his success? Well, his look for starters, and his talent for taking Kizomba to new heights.
20 Fingers
is a new style. It's a fusion of several influences. There's Zouk, R&B, a touch of Terrachinha, and a pinch of Afro. That makes for a style that I have made my own, and that I have made popular. People are starting to like it.
Here we like him because his songs, his lyrics have some things like something funny, you know, and something sex too. Things that we know that we talk, we say when we are doing something, you know. You can take, you speak things that we live in day by day, you know.
His sound is even known in Europe. His work caught the attention of a Portuguese producer earlier this year, and he now performs in Portugal, Switzerland and Italy. The story is all the more remarkable given the obstacles African musicians face. 20 Fingers has not released a single CD. He owes his success to his talent, social networks and a knack for make-do.
The problem is I have to do it all myself. I can't get any backing. I have no backing to make an original CD and to market and sell it. It all comes out of my pocket, but I know it will come.
His optimism will pay off, but 20 Fingers is right in pointing out the lack of viable structures and support from political bodies. Like many artists in the country, he is holding out for the promise of a genuine cultural policy.
First of all, we need to wipe out music piracy in our country. Secondly, we need to attract music labels and serious-minded publishers to our country. Then we have to do what they do in other countries. When they play a song on the radio, the musician gets a percentage. We don't have that here. When a musician starts making music, it is because he or she wants to make a living from music. Fighting piracy, setting up publishing companies, paying artists, that's all very important for us.
Gracio is seen as something of a driving force. The artists around 20 Fingers at the studio hope he will be the one to get things moving, and that one day they will be able to make a living from their music. Among 20 Fingers' current ventures is a project with Abuchamo Monhato, a collaboration that may well help his friend up the ladder of success.
Let's now get back to our guest Seidik ABBA for the second part of our interview this week. In this exclusive interview, he paints an uncompromising portrait of Boko Haram and the group's real motivations.
So we are far from the motivations of Boko Haram from the beginning, who claimed to fight for Islam.
Boko Haram, au début,
At the start, Boko Haram claimed to fight for a more rigorous Islam, a more genuine Islam in the Lake Chad Basin region. It was a policy that proved quite effective, as Boko Haram also claimed to be fighting for social justice. It's something that goes down well in a country like Nigeria. Nigeria produces 2 million barrels of oil a day, yet at least half of the population lives below the poverty line because the money is being siphoned off by the elites who are in power, whether civilian or military. Boko Haram claimed it wanted to restore social justice, to redistribute the country's wealth more effectively, and this argument was very popular. But gradually, all of the arguments that had won Boko Haram some popular support to begin with were abandoned, and the movement turned instead towards criminal and other activities.
If I hear what you're saying, it is no longer a religious project, it's no longer a social one, but quite simply, it is mafia.
The ideals that lay behind the creation of Boko Haram and supported by Mohammed Yusuf, its founder, between 2002 and 2009 were totally betrayed and completely corrupted. Today, Boko Haram sets out to pillage, and the loot is brought back and shared. In my book, Journey to the Heart of Boko Haram, fighters tell how this was distributed. When the booty was brought back, the leaders take the lion's share, and only a paltry part goes to those who have actually been fighting their wars. And the leaders gradually got richer. The movement today is about some people with their own personal agendas of wanting to get rich, rather than fighting for an ideology to spread Islam. All the propaganda about the idea of the caliphate that they want to create is just a cover to disguise the fact the leaders are now more concerned with accumulating material things and wealth.
So you wrote this book, Understanding Boko Haram, which means that you want to explain, especially to young people, this is what you write about, what Boko Haram is, and also perhaps to warn them of what's happening there. So these young fighters, these young people who are with Boko Haram, how many are there?
Indeed, there are no precise estimates on the numbers of Boko Haram, but according to our calculations and comparing two other sources, we think they number about 10,000.
So one can imagine that in these 10,000 people, there are 1/3 who are young people.
Not much more than that. These young people were recruitable. They had no prospects. In the Diffa region, that I know well, many young people who are members of Boko Haram don't even pray. They're required 5 times a day. Islam wasn't their motivation. It was unemployment and the lack of prospects that made them join. And Boko Haram, knowing this, took advantage, even to the point of having a welcome package. When a young person joins up, he's given a motorbike, he's given some cash, and often he is even offered a wife. So that created motivation, and a lot of young people volunteered. And when they showed up back home, before the authorities became aware of this phenomenon, those that had left at first returned to boast and to show those that hadn't left all the benefits that they could expect if they joined, and so on and so forth. And a lot of young people have joined up. Even today, there are some young people who want to join Boko Haram.
What are their tasks? And what does their daily lives look like for these young people?
When a young person decides to join Boko Haram, as I said, he arrives and receives the welcome package. And depending on his background, there is an orientation. Before Boko Haram splintered, the movement was very structured and organized. Based on his character, the young recruit might be assigned to the infantry. He can also be sent off to one of Boko Haram's training centers, where people undergo live weapons training and learn to use live ammunition. They are trained to shoot sitting down and standing up, as I wrote in the book. If not, if he has a different profile, he is assigned to agriculture, where the produce will be sold off for a profit. And since Boko Haram has a fleet of cars, if the recruit has some experience with machinery, he might be trained as a mechanic.
Il va être envoyé pour être formé comme garagiste. Sinon,
otherwise, he'll be trained as a doctor or a nurse, or at least someone who takes care of others. There are specializations in Boko Haram, and young people are often assigned to activities according to their profile or according to their choice.
En fonction de leur profil ou en fonction de leur choix.
Well, that's it. Initiative Africa is over for today. Don't miss the rest of this exclusive interview with Seidik ABBA in the next edition of Initiative Africa in 2 weeks. You will learn how the deadliest terrorist organization in the world recruits young people in the daily lives of its fighters. In the meantime, you can catch the first part of Seidik ABBA's interview and the replay of our programs on our news website, africaonair.com. And of course, you can also find us on all our social media channels. Feel free to share, like and comment with the hashtag Initiative Africa TV show. And don't forget, next week, same time, same channel, I'll see you again with a new edition of Business Africa. Have a great week. Goodbye.